Good morning and welcome back to Margin. This morning we're going to talk about what is the book value of your car. So let's jump right into it. With most themes, it's important to first look at where you're at. So you may benefit from a few stories, of some personal stories, an example of what someone else has experienced that may relate to you, as well as where the industry is going. But ultimately, it has more to do with you individually and figuring out where you're at. So the question today is, what vehicle or vehicles do you own? And do you know what they're worth? So let's look at how to best value your vehicle. The first approach is the book value. So a book value refers to what your vehicle was purchased at minus the depreciation that has occurred since the purchase based on you driving off the value, whether through putting miles on it, wear and tear, age, so on and so forth, and figuring out what that book value is. Now, fortunately, you don't actually have to calculate the original purchase price of your vehicle and how much value you have driven off of that vehicle over a period of time. But there's actually resources available to you to be able to pull that value. So I commonly refer to kellybluebook.com or NADA.com. Now, NADA has a number of other resources as well that I've referred to in regards to articles they've put forth. But these two resources are very helpful when it comes to figuring out what the book value is of your vehicle. So keep in mind, your book value will vary based on the region of the United States you live in. So if you live in an environment where you have a number of months of winter and your roads get salted in the winter and your cars then are oxidized and are decayed from that salt damage, then you may experience a deeper and sharper drop off when it comes to depreciation. Now, there's other parts of the United States that there's cars with a high amount of hail damage or some other natural disaster that affects and that would actually affect the value, the book value on that vehicle as well. The example I want to use today is based on the Car and Driver's number one selling vehicle, and that is the Ford F-150. So the Ford F-150 has been a long time best-selling vehicle. There's probably many of you who own a Ford F-150 or have owned a Ford F-150. And I want to use this example because this vehicle has been around for a long time. And so what I want to compare today is looking at a 3-year-old version of a Ford F-150 at a mid-level package. And so looking at something that would be the average vehicle for a F-150 that people would most likely drive. So today we're going to look at two different resources that will hopefully be a tool for you to find out what the book value is of your vehicle. And so going through the process of looking at this for our example today, we are looking at a 2019 Ford F-150. And so going through this process, if you have a browser available to you, you will simply go to kbb.com. You'll see the My Car Value button that you can click. From that point, you'll be able to click on the various options that the vehicle has. In this case, we're looking at the 2019 Ford F-150. We are looking at a Super Crew version of that F-150. We are assuming that there are 36,000 miles based on an average of 12,000 miles being driven per year by the average American. And so with that, we're looking at 36,000 miles. You put in your zip code and then you press go on this. Beyond that, you're looking at the mid-range F-150. So with that, I'm looking for the Lariat package with the short bed. So that's the most common configuration of the Lariat. And so with that, we're going to click on that option. We're going to go to the next screen. And then beyond that, we're going to select the specific actual equipment that is on that vehicle. So we're going to select options. So with selecting options, you'll be able to look at what the typical configuration is. In this case, we're going to go with the V8, which is a 5-liter engine. We're going to assume that the truck is 4-wheel drive. We're going to look at the standard options, not changing any of those as of right now, but looking at each of them to make sure that we factor in any that would apply. In this case, none of these apply thus far. And so when we're looking at packages, some of these come with additional accessory packages. So in this case, there's an FX4 off-road package on this version. This version also is in the color white. And so beyond that, it will ask you the condition. Now, for your vehicle, this gives you an explanation of how many vehicles or the percentage of vehicles fall within each category. And so you have everything from fair to excellent for Kelley Blue Book. And in this case, this is a 3-year-old vehicle with 36,000 miles, and you may price it at excellent. If you've kept it garage kept, it doesn't have hail damage, it doesn't have rust, it doesn't have any of those components. If you have had a dealer maintained, it has no accidents, and has a clean title, then you would price it at the excellent rate. So based on that, from that point, it begins to calculate your Blue Book value. And so as we're looking at this, it's important for you to be able to go through these steps to apply to your own vehicle. Now, with this Super Crew Cab F-150 that is a Lariat package with the short bed, 36,000 miles, based on the region we're looking at, we're going to look at various levels. So the first one they offer you is trade-in value. Now, if you're going to a dealership, this may give you an idea of what the vehicle would be worth based on trade-in. In this case, I would recommend you try to sell it private party. You try to find a buyer that can purchase that vehicle and be able to pay you top dollar for that. So based on this, the private party value is at $46,472. And so this gives you a good starting point to know, okay, well, this 3-year-old vehicle with 36,000 miles is now worth this amount. So the next step really comes down to looking at what you originally purchased that vehicle for, how long you've owned it, and how much is depreciated per year down to this point. So beyond this, the second tool to look at comes down to looking at the NADA. So NADA guides gives you another way to look up this information. So NADA allows you to go through a similar process. Of course, it's different steps. So you would follow different steps to get there. But right now, you go to the NADAguides.com and you click on Start Now. Once you click on Start Now, this gives you the ability of researching by body type. We are looking at the silhouette of the truck. So beyond this, you're looking at what kind of make you're going to research. Today, of course, it's the Ford. And so beyond that, we're looking at a 2019 used Ford F-150. So it will populate that information. You'll be able to click on the F-150 specifically, and then from that point, be able to choose the package that it has. In this case, it breaks down that the 4-wheel drive or the 2-wheel drive configuration for the crew cab and the Lariat specification is available. And so we click on that, and then we put in the zip code accordingly. So this, of course, again, will pull your region, will pull that value based on that area. So again, we have mileage to enter of 36,000 miles. Beyond that, we want to select our specific options. Of course, the specific options had to do with the V8 engine and the FX4 package. Beyond that, there weren't any other changes that were made. And so we're just going with the standard options otherwise. But you'll want to go through for your vehicle and input those specific options that have to do with your vehicle. And so beyond that, you're going to press continue. You're going to look at the values that come up. And of course, the first thing you'll notice rough trade-in, average trade-in, and clean trade-in, which are different terminology than you saw from the private party side. So what I typically do here is I average, if you have a clean vehicle, I average the clean trade-in and the clean retail value for this. And so you'll basically be looking at an amount that basically averages out the $42,200 that's for the trade-in clean value and the $46,225 for the clean retail. And of course, we know that that's sitting right around the $44,000 mark. And so you have an idea based on this, what this vehicle is actually worth. So this is my call to action today, is to look at your specific vehicle, figuring out, does your vehicle have any accidents? Is there any paint work that have been done on your vehicle? Is there damage otherwise that is either on the interior or exterior? Maybe it's curb rash, maybe it's the condition of the tires, but also looking at whether you have all sets of keys, whether you have your records, and looking at anything else that would contribute to the value to figure out what category it fits in. And so my call to action really is to come up with what the evaluation is of your vehicle, so you have a real-time estimate based on the book value of what that vehicle is worth. If this information is helpful to you, please do like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you're reminded to come back on a daily basis and improve in managing your personal finances. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your day. We'll see you back here tomorrow.